Hello, I'm just going to start talking about this project, Suffuse, and how it arrived. Um, so first of all, just to say I've been very ill with COVID. I was out for 6 weeks, so this project has been particularly difficult, but at the same time fun. I started with ideas of like maybe I don't know, doing something with menopause. So I started. The only thing that I had clear was that I wanted to explore color, and so then I started looking at things like menopause and making my color explorations with like felt and clay, um, with little samples like this. Yeah, I don't know if you can see. And then and these ones, just exploring how what color combinations I was going to use. And then COVID hit, and I started looking at Instagram a lot as I was so unwell, and got really inspired by other people and what they were posting. Unfortunately, I couldn't come downstairs, so I couldn't play with clay or explore with clay. So I started looking at other people's photography of nature and lakes and got quite inspired because obviously being in bed for so long and finding it hard to breathe, I started like imagining going for a swim. So actually, it was Becca Farley that inspired me through all of this. Seeing her wild swims, and that got me through COVID. So actually this project is being quite informed by what I've been able to do with my constraints of not being able to breathe and coughing a lot, to be honest. So I started making collages of some of the imagery that uh, I that I was seeing. And then it took me back to my holidays in Galicia. So I started breaking down, and what I found myself doing is that I started breaking down shape, and using colour and shape. So these are some collages I made, and it was very good because I was able to do these from my bed. Yeah, and exploring different colour combinations. So then I kind of like started to refine my colour palette, and I fancied the pales this time, pastels. So I was using pastels. This is a little collage I did of Rebecca, like breaking the ice. I don't know why, I found it really inspirational. So most of the project is based on that. I researched Biza Butler and Forest and Found, and I was kind of conflicted with whether to use bright colours or paler colours because I quite fancied my natural dyes as well. So all through the project I was exploring colour. So what happens when I use my natural dyed fabrics with fruits, and I was still going with the idea of encapsulating. I kind of like that wabi-sabi look, so I explored some of those. And this is another one using felt and fabrics, yeah, paler colours. But I still wasn't quite happy with, although I liked them, and I think there's a lot I can do with these. I still, at that point, I suppose the fever hit, and I found myself wanting really brighter colours. So I wanted to also um, play with the shapes within the samples. So then I explored. Also, I had curiosity of doing things in 3D, so I just explored my dyed fabrics. I'm trying to make a shape with it. So that's another sample. And this one feels kind of like you can bend it, it's bendable, but it's also quite strong because it's got little stitch pieces. So so yeah, in between my research with Bisa Butler and Forest and Found, I was like, okay, what do I want to do? What do I like? Who am I? So I then thought to myself, I'm really interested in interiors. I think through part 5, that's what I found. And I looked at other research, like obviously Bisa Butler. I liked her portraits and the colour, the strong colours. Forest and Found, I like the natural dyes and ethical, so I was in between both. I looked into Liz Payne, exploring abstraction through colour, shape and form. Um, and then Jenny Grafford, I liked her photography, the way she used accent colours to reflect her femininity, and not accent colours, sorry, pastel colours. So that's where my pastels came. Rex Ray, I was really interested in he's they're like the father figure of collage and sharp shapes. So that's why from this, sorry, from these kind of samples, I went into sharper samples with collages. And I also looked at Mark Joshua Epstein, sorry, um, thinking about discordant combinations of shape. So, for example, this top I'm wearing, which is one of my prints, I would never usually do this kind of combination of prints. Like it's just not something I would do. So I was just like playing with. I don't know if you can see. I see playing with these kind of collages. Oops, sorry. And thinking about how I can break them into shapes and what happens. So then I started playing with those shapes. Oops, sorry. I started playing with those shapes, these shapes, to just come up to different prints. So those prints are in my blog, all different types of prints and combinations, and then I sort of explored printing them on fabric. I learned things like, okay, I thought I liked the pencil on this, and then I realised actually that it would have been better probably without the pencil. But also, in making those mistakes, it made me also realise that maybe I can stitch on top and maybe quilt it. So that's something that I could have developed further. While I was in bed with high temperatures, I made these small quilts just to explore what happens with my natural fabrics when I put them together and I make shapes. Also exploring the stitch and how I can actually make different shapes with just the stitching. You see here, this is more raised and this is less raised because I've stitched it there. And so they're kind of little samples of different stitches and what can that do to the fabric. It feels quite soft and you can't see it very well. There you go. There's a lot of texture within the sample. So that was done. Then I thought, well, that actually I did this one first, bright colours, because you know I like bright colours. But then I thought, okay, how would it work with the more natural? So this is just a study of colour really and tones to see what happens and how the mood changes. Obviously these can be developed into, these little images could be developed and I could make a quilt just with one of these and that would look quite interesting. This is obviously informed by Forest and Found, my research into her quilts. And then of course I had to have a bit of fun and explore what happens when I make different shapes with Play-Doh, or this is air dry sort of Play-Doh, and then when I photograph them, and what prints could I make. I think this is quite contemporary, and I could see this in an interior as cushions, or I printed this one in satin just because I wanted to see how it moved. So here we go. And then I went for a heavier material like velvet, and this again is photographing my shapes again, made out of cardboard. I explored doing these in concrete as well. So I've got these. This was also another study into how I could do them. Originally, I made them like this, but they weren't good enough. Basically, they didn't make the cuts. So actually, I used these to explore concretes like this to maybe develop them into tiles. So yeah, what else? There's also, so I explored different prints, and this is another one similar to my top. So my trend was suffuse, and it was meant to be suffusing fun. Like, I didn't want a concept that was too deep. I wanted something that just fun, just because I was going through too much as it was. And I think, generally speaking, the trend has worked because it wasn't too deep this time, and it was just suffusing fun, and I'm hoping I've done that. I've learnt a lot about scale of pattern. Like, for example, this is a bigger scale and it works better for a hoodie. And then in other samples, I've kind of reduced the scale. For maybe a cushion, I might want to reduce the scale. For a quilt, like this one, I might want to just use one section and make a huge scale, quilt, and that might look quite contemporary and fun. So I've tried to experiment with as much media as I possibly could, considering my illness at the time. So I experimented with clay, Play-Doh, Lego, fabric, and CAD, and dyeing fabrics. I looked into companies like Okla and Studio Proba, which actually I didn't know them, but I realised that they do similar. Studio Proba does similar than this, like breaking down in shape, and they decorate. They go huge. They might decorate, I don't know, a swimming pool, or so I was quite interested in them. And that was fluke, actually. That was only because by doing what I was doing, I think my phone must have used the algorithm, and they popped up in my phone. I thought, oh, they're quite cool. I also learnt about Kitty McCall, and she studies colour, and she's very interested in print. So I thought some of my work could have fitted into that sort of context. So yeah, I think I may have covered everything. So that's all really. There's areas that obviously need refining further. Like, for example, this hoodie, the print is not quite matching, so there's room for improvement, a lot of room for improvement. And I think there's another area here, somewhere down here, where it's not matching. So there's a lot more that I can improve on. And there's also this one that fell. This one, I find this print quite commercial. It could fit into a variety. I've made different proposals with this one, and I can use it for cushions, shower curtains, not so much a rag. I've used other prints for rags, but that's all in my blog. So yeah, sorry I'm a bit out of breath, and I hope this helps. Thank you.